Hey, this is Andy,
And Randy.
and we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athletic trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase it all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Welcome back to another episode of AT Corner. We're here, 2023. Here we go.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. And you know what? We're kicking it off with our first story episode of the year.
And this one's for the athletes.
Yes, that is right. What are we talking about today?
So I figured we would start off the year actually looking at, do athletes really understand an athletic trainer's role?
That's a good question.
And I think obviously it's going to vary not only by setting, but also by specific job and by specific athletic trainer.
That's true. And I think sometimes too, they don't understand fully what we do. And I think a lot of, like, if you're talking about like a traditional setting, like athletes, I think athletes have a pretty good idea, like, oh, I do the injury evaluation, I do rehab, I am there for emergencies. Like, I think they have a good grasp on that, but they never think about the admin work that goes into that as well.
Right. I think this comes at a very great time with all the advocacy that's been happening after Damar Hamlin.
Yes, that's true.
And athletic trainer is a hot word right now.
Oh, most definitely.
And if you notice, more announcers are actually saying athletic trainer.
Yes, and I've noticed too, ESPN does a pretty good job. I think as a whole, I think that organization has done a pretty good job of when they're saying something about the athletic training staff, they either say medical staff or athletic training staff. So it has been very refreshing to actually hear our title appropriate.
Actually, I was just reading some comments, which you probably shouldn't do, but I was reading some comments on the video you sent me about the Packers guy who pushed one of the athletic trainers.
Yes.
And someone literally wrote, they didn't write trainer, they wrote personal trainer.
Oh, no.
Like, trainer would have been better.
Yeah, that would have made, at least you could kind of think like, oh, maybe they know what they're talking about. No, that one, they definitely don't know what they're talking about.
No, they definitely wrote personal trainer.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. So anyway, we're also talking about common themes of athletes worried about ATs taking them out.
Okay.
Buy-in. We have a couple of those. Incoming athletes spiel.
Okay.
Like when you have someone coming in. Preseason meetings.
Okay. Oh, that's important.
And then also we're going to end on what you wish your athletes knew.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So getting started, I did put up questions on our Instagram story as I normally do. And one of the first questions I wrote was asking if the athletic trainers who follow us, if they were once an athlete under the care of an athletic trainer.
Oh, okay.
74% of them said yes.
Oh, that's cool. That's really awesome.
Which is just like a totally different perspective that they have.
Yes.
I was never an athlete underneath an athletic trainer.
No, neither was I.
So you really get to see both sides.
Yes.
Of when you're an athlete and when you're an athletic trainer. And it's so funny because I work at a school where I teach in like intro to sports med and like stuff like that. And there's a lot of athletes.
Yes,
there's
there are.
A lot of athletes who are interested in becoming an athletic trainer.
That's awesome.
And the ones who tell me all the time who are interested in becoming an athletic trainer, I feel like are the worst. They don't come in for treatment.
Well, then you know what? They're doing what exactly it takes to be an athletic trainer. Because let's be honest, who are the worst patients? Athletic trainers are the worst to themselves.
Actually, that is so true.
So they're actually doing what it takes to be an athletic trainer.
Yeah. And it's just so funny to me because I'm like, come on, guys.
Well, you know what I think's cool is, like you said, you get those people that, you know, we're an athlete, we're under the care of an athletic trainer, and now being an athletic trainer, like you said, they get to see both sides. You get to kind of understand that initial barrier of like, or that initial shock of what an athletic trainer is. Like you understand it from the athlete's perspective. So hopefully you can help like bridge that gap a little bit faster or make it a little bit more comfortable.
So our first topic is just getting athletes to understand an athletic trainer's role. And again, on our Instagram story, I asked about how well do your athletes understand your role as an athletic trainer. Actually, most people answered closer to the super well side.
Okay.
Like it was a slider. Most people said closer to the super well side rather than their athletes don't understand.
Which I think that's true. I think that's pretty well that they like I said, I think a lot of it's just they don't understand the behind the scenes. The stuff that they're not there to see.
You know what? There was an athlete this season who he probably came in one of the most, and I think I underestimated how much, because he trusts me a lot, and so I just figured that he understood my role, like the like generic athletic training role. But I was telling him about, there was this job posting a long time ago of an athletic trainer who works with like the FBI or CIA or something. Oh
yeah, in the field. Yeah.
Where like EMTs can't go, like they can't send in an emergency, and you're basically you're there.
You are the healthcare at that moment.
You are, exactly. So, and I was like, man, like in another life that would be really cool. And he said, "Oh, what are you gonna do? Like run and bring heat packs to them?"
Excuse me. Excuse me, sir.
And that's when I realized that, wow,
you
apparently
don't know.
I mean, he comes in for rehab all the time, so like he sees the rehab side and he sees the treatment side. He knows that I give him heat packs, but he
apparently that's all you do.
Did not understand any of the emergency stuff that we do.
Yeah, seriously.
And so then I told him, I was like, you know what I had to do last season, right?
Yeah.
I had to deal with emergency. Luckily I didn't have any this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, very good. But you know what? When you think about it, an athletic trainer is like perfect for that role, because we're pretty good about thinking on our feet.
Mm-hmm.
And being in pressure situations and making the most out of a very stressful situation.
So actually, I have a contract to work with a cruise line, and sometimes you go out there and they don't put you on the list, or
oh yeah, I remember this,
or they accidentally mess up some things and you're not allowed to get on the cruise.
Yeah.
And they say that whenever there's an athletic trainer who signs up to do the cruise line, and usually whenever those things happen, the athletic trainers are more go with the flow.
Yeah.
Whereas when they get like other healthcare professionals to go, they have like a cow when things don't go right. And
according
they say,
to plan.
So then when I was working with a person and I was like first working with them a few years ago, they were like, "Oh, thank goodness you're an athletic trainer. We're not going to have any problems with you."
Yep.
And I thought that was so funny, because I think it's like the demands of the job.
Well, it is, because when you think of most athletic trainers, whether, even as a student, where do you get your start more than likely? Right? You have a lot of traditional athletics rotations or experience, which if we know anything about the athletics schedule,
right,
nothing's certain.
Right.
Anything can happen at any moment. So, yeah, we're just kind of used to it.
So our first story is actually anonymous. This person said, "I would say most of my athletes know my role. I'm in the college setting and most athletes have had ATs before. That being said, some of my walk-on rowers have not done any sports before and they do not know my role. But I tell them ATs are like a PT and an EMT in one, and we're responsible for all things medical while they're at school, so they can come to me with anything."
Nice. I mean, that's kind of like how I sum it up. If I'm doing a quick summary, that's usually what I say.
Mm-hmm. That's what Rebecca B says too. She says, "I explain to lay people that we're a cross between a PT and an EMT. To my athletes specifically, I tell them that my main goal is to keep them healthy and out of the athletic training room. I'm going to tell them things to keep them away from me, but if they need me, I'm always here."
Yeah, no, definitely.
I actually really like that Anonymous said they can come to me with anything, because I usually highlight like mental health is a big thing that I think people don't think about. And then also, we really can be the middleman of a lot of stuff. So if we can't do it ourselves, we know someone who can.
100%. We're very good at facilitating the other branches of the healthcare system.
Right.
And making sure, one, we can help our student athletes, our patients navigate that, and also helping them get into those, appointments, getting into those conversations, meeting those people, and getting them to where they need to go.
Right. It's almost like now we have a house and we're trying to figure out like, oh, our walls are seeping water when it rains. Who do we call for that?
I wish we had an athletic trainer for home repairs.
But now we're like building a network of contractors who are like, oh, I know someone who you can call for this and like whatever. But it's like, okay, if you are an athlete and you have an athletic trainer, please talk to them.
Yes.
They probably know what to do.
Yeah. And even if they don't, they will find out to who you should probably go to.
Exactly.
Or who would be the best.
Exactly. That is athletic trainer's specialty is MacGyvering things and being creative.
Communication.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do a lot of communication.
So one of the most common misconceptions I feel like that we got, and then also just I feel like through my personal experience and probably yours, is athletes thinking you're going to take them out. That's what you're there for.
Yeah, I think slowly and very slowly, like snail's pace. I do feel like this stigma is very slowly starting to leave some athletes' mind, especially with more athletes, more prominent elite athletes starting to talk about their recovery process. You know, like you have all these Olympians, you know, you have certain, professional team sport athletes starting to talk about like what they do for recovery and stuff like that. So, I think that once these other athletes start seeing that, oh, they're like, oh, well, they're doing this. I should be on top of this. Like I have more kids now talking about how like, oh yeah, man, I got to take care of my body or, recovery. And it's just like a few years ago, I don't think that was the thing. And just kids kind of toughed it out. So I do think it's slowly getting better, but again, very slowly. There's still those kids that are afraid to be taken out.
Well, not only afraid to be taken out because of what coach is going to say or if coach is going to not let them play or whatever, but also because they want to play. They want to be practicing.
100%. And that's the frustrating part is because they just don't get it that, okay, you're letting this linger to where now you actually have to be out longer than you probably were going to have to be. And also, I've noticed too, and now this isn't everywhere, but I think the majority of coaches out there are starting to realize that, like, I rather have my kids healthy.
I am getting that too, even from my old school coaches.
Yeah. So I really think this old school mentality of, oh, they need to tough it out. And now, obviously in sport, there's going to be a lot of moments where, hey, these kids probably need to tough it out. Kind of like stuff like that. Like, I get it. I get the culture of sports in certain situations, right? Like, if it's a championship game, right? I get it. Kid might have tough something out, right? But like a lot of these coaches are really getting away from stuff like that. And like, I'd rather have my athletes close to 100% as I can than grinding them into like ground coffee.
One of my football coaches this semester was actually, he came up to me after one of his star players has a ankle sprain, pretty bad. And he was like, I know, if it was a championship game tomorrow, you'd let him play, but it's not, so I should probably not play him. And I was like, thanks for doing my job for me.
Yeah, 100%. And that always helps.
Oh, yeah.
Like when coach is on board. When it's the athletic trainer and the coach both telling the kid, hey, you probably shouldn't be doing this, that's a big help.
Oh, big help. Big help. We got an anonymous. When they play injured, I break down the timeline of the season and explain the risk of missing more. Do you want to miss 3/4 or more of games?
Yeah, you do that.
That's
like with the days of the week.
What do you mean?
Like I remember you saying like you'll sit them down for like practice, like, hey, you missed this practice, but you'll be available for like this day, this day, this day. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I lay it out for them. I also really enjoy that like negotiation process. Yeah. I mean, I do it in rehab too. Like I think that giving the athletes a choice gives them a little bit more buy-in and a little bit more like I'm a part of this process and not just someone's telling me to sit. Absolutely.
And it's what makes rehab effective, right? They're able to control their treatment too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely like getting their game plan. Usually that's what I'll do is So anytime like I have a student athlete, right, you always have to communicate with the coach about something, about status, stuff like that. Anytime I talk about status, the first person I talk to is the student athlete. I figure out what's their goal, what they want to do, and also a situation like, what do you want me to tell the coach, right? Like, I don't, right, to see what they're comfortable with and stuff like that. So that's the first thing I do is I make sure before I talk about any game time status, practice status, I talk to the student athlete first to get their point, and then that's what we talk about. Like, okay, well, what's, especially if you know this is gonna be a long term. All right, what's your goal? When are you trying to get back? And let's figure out if that's feasible. Now, if you have a kid who strained his hamstring pretty bad and you're looking at like 3 to 4 weeks and they're like, I want to be back tomorrow. Okay, yeah, that's a little unrealistic, right? But if it's the kid that's like, hey, like I want to be back, like maybe it's 2 weeks from now, about 3 weeks from now. Okay, I'm not going to say, it might be doable, but don't be surprised. It might not, but we're going to try.
Right. So Sarah Y says, I always tell my athletes I don't like taking athletes out. It's actually my least favorite part of my job. I tell them I am checking on them or evaluating an injury because I care and I want them to be healthy enough to play. I also tell them that I am their voice of reason if their injury warrants removal because they usually all tell me they are fine.
You see, the thing that gets me, though, is like, it's like what Sarah said. There's no joy of taking out a student. Like, I'm not getting any kicks.
No.
Like, I just know.
You want me to sit and listen to coach yell at me?
Yeah.
Like, you want me to just take it?
Yeah, no. Like, the reason I do this is because I know what's going to get you where you want to go. Right? I know how to make sure you perform to the best of your ability. My favorite is when the athlete's like, oh, I'm good. And then they try to like do something and they're limping. I'm like, yeah?
Yeah. Are you really good?
You look good there, huh? You think that's effective?
They do.
They really do.
They really do.
Don't you say, like, when it's a situation like that, don't you tell them like this, you're right now, you're not what your team needs or something like that?
I do. I this actually backfired me on this season, so I have to figure out how to reword it because usually I say something about is like 50% of you what your team needs, or like is an injured you really like the best of what you're gonna see. I already forgot what I said because I really
had to go back to the drawing board
because one of my athletes was like, yes, an injured me is better than my backup.
Were you speechless?
And I was like, oh shoot. That's always worked for me. I don't know.
Yeah. Which actually, most situations I think that I've noticed, like when they are like limping or like when like they can't do something to their fullest and like you notice it, that's what 9 times out of 10 they kind of are like, yeah, I can't do it.
Right, that's what they usually. Yeah,
so I get that.
It left me speechless. I was like, I don't know what to do with you right now. So actually usually when I check on someone, and I actually had to sit down with one of my teams because they were just all not telling me anything. And it was in the beginning of the season.
That's
I was
so
like,
annoying.
you guys, you obviously don't understand why I'm here. So I told them, I said, hey guys, when I come to ask you, are you okay? Actually, I don't ask that. I say, well, I'll tell you what I say in a second. Usually when I ask you, it's because the more information that you give me, the more I can give you so you can keep playing.
Yeah.
So I actually usually say, can I support you right now? Or what support do you need?
Absolutely.
Because then they don't say, I'm fine. Because that's not an answer.
Yeah.
Usually they're like, oh no, I'm good. Which, okay, good. Or they'll say, my finger's hurting. Can I get some tape on it or something?
Yeah.
Because as soon as they tell me, like, they think they know what they need, then I can get into their brain like, okay, so if you feel like you need tape on your finger, let me check it out and see what I can do.
Yeah.
So I feel like it kind of is like the question when someone's head hurts or when they hit their head and you're like, how bad's your headache? Instead of, do you have a headache?
Yeah.
Because they can't say, no, my head's fine.
Yeah. These kids.
Or no, it's not that bad. Oh, you just said you had a headache.
Yeah. These kids.
Yeah. I also, Sarah Y said, I'm their voice of reason if the injury warrants removal. I have said, especially for like concussions.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am protecting you from you right now.
Yep.
And you just don't know it.
Yep. No, 100%. And again, it goes back to, I think, a lot more people are starting to see, like, you know, the whole NFL concussion stuff and seeing the consequences of obviously what's happened in the past with like the possibility of the link to CTE and the long-term effects. And also just even from this past season, you know, the effects of, you know, what can happen even when some stuff goes right, some stuff goes wrong. You know, there's, you know, and the biggest thing that I tell student athletes, and, you know, this is something I picked up at one of the talks at NATA is, you know, there's been a lot of research in concussions lately. And I mean, obviously, because like, again, the NFL, CTE, stuff like that. But there's still so much about concussions that we just do not know. So, I mean, these kids, you know, you don't want to gamble with stuff that we don't even know about yet.
Right.
You know?
Right. So another AT perspective. Marissa S says, nothing makes me happier than watching you play, but that can only happen if you're safe, and it's my job to make sure it stays that way. And if I know them already. Also, I have to work harder when I pull you, so why would I do that just for fun?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Once you kind of get to know them, you can joke around with that. Like, yeah, you're giving me more work. Why would I be doing that?
Right. Right. Some more things to say to athletes who think they're going to get taken out. My job is to keep you on the field safely. Taking you out is last resort. Give them a perspective of how it would affect performance in their team if they were out, if they're injured. Give them a perspective of how it would affect performance and their team if they're out there injured, which is kind of like what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
And we want to see you succeed in sport and in life.
Yes, and that's really hard, especially like for, you know, working at the collegiate and, you know, high school levels is you're trying, like, our job is to help them keep them safe in sport and then give them the best chance later in life, you know, with some of these injuries to make sure they don't begin to develop other complex issues 20, 30 years down the line. So trying to get some of these athletes to buy in, like to make a college kid and a high school kid think about what it's going to be like when they're 30 or 40, that is really hard to get them to, like some do understand and kind of get it. Like I had a student athlete, it was a pole vaulter. She was going into her senior year, so kind of a big deal. And she's had so many knee surgeries. She hurt her knee again, and they went back in and they were like, dude, your knees look like you're like 60. And they were talking about like, if you keep going, you're probably going to need a total knee replacement.
Oof.
And she wasn't even, right? She's a college senior. She's like what, 24, 25?
Wow.
And she wants to be a PA, a surgical PA. So she's going to be on her feet. Right. So she's probably going to need like 2 or 3 total knee replacements by the time, you know, within her lifetime.
Right.
So it's like she made the decision, like it's not worth it. I can't do that.
Right.
Right. So yeah, sometimes, man, getting these kids to think about the long term can be hard.
I think it helps when their coach already has that buy-in from their own experience.
Oh, you've had that too. Your coaches have brought that up before,
especially with concussions.
Yes. And
I think that's why certain groups of my football players were so good at reporting them.
Yeah.
If my coach didn't, my coach would.
Yeah. No, which is awesome.
Right. And I think he just kind of like, guys, you don't want to be like me. And
that's what I tell, you know, student athletes, educating them on concussions is like, I just kind of give them the, you know, the blunt news. Like, just imagine for a minute, like waking up and having a headache all day. Or like you can't even be on your computer very long because your headache just starts getting worse. And that's just like your day-to-day life. Like it sucks. And like it's hard for them to imagine that because they don't feel it right now. But I can tell you that sucks.
Well, it's just like you see those videos of those people who have like long-term, like a parosmia or like from COVID. Like long-term, they can't. Everything tastes like garbage and smells like garbage. Like
that's a pretty poor way to live.
Right. I mean, that's like it affects your entire day, every day. It's like a chronic illness.
Yeah.
Your injury could be a chronic illness.
Absolutely.
So we got some buy-in. This one's from Jesus C. I use buy-in when I know the athlete wants to get better or my attempt to show them how much better they can be works. If they aren't bought into that, I'm not chasing them. I try to show them during rehab. A lot of times they're scared to get taken out, which I make clear that I'm there to help keep them playing, not to take them out because I want to. Once rehab starts, I start fixing positional and mechanical patterning errors I may see when we start. When we start fixing those, then they immediately feel better as an athlete. I try to show them what they looked like 10 minutes ago before coming in and how it's possibly contributing to their injury. Then, after 10 minutes of rehab and fixing those mechanical errors and positioning, how much more athletic they look, then they feel it too. We drill some things and they feel more smooth, more athletic. I also think that helps break down the initial barrier. I can help them be a little better athlete while also helping them with their injury.
Absolutely.
I feel like the buy-in that I do is I try to make a good impression with their first interaction of coming in. So usually I try to make significant changes in either their pain level, or I try to give them something that we can build upon on when they come back in. Because if you don't pay attention to them that first time, they're not going to come back.
100%.
Or if they don't feel like you helped them the first time they came in, they're not going to come back.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at right now, because I'm just starting at a new place. So, I'm working with a few teams that, before I was hired on, right? Like they were short staffed. So, being able to provide services to everyone, it happens. So I'm with a team who, was coming off of a short staff, so maybe it felt like, oh, we're neglected. It's a gym sport too, so they're like away from the athletic training room. So trying to come in and just letting them know like I'm here and letting them buy in to come into the athletic training room. Like I'm here for you guys. So yeah, no, that's definitely where I'm at. And some of the ways I like to do it is, one of the ways is like you said, like when they come in, I really want to see them feel better. I want to get them better. I want them to show like when you come in, good things happen. Because, there are some people who feel like they come in and like all they do is get put into pain, right? Like some of the manual therapy stuff we do is uncomfortable.
Maybe that's not something you do on the first time.
Exactly.
You meet someone.
So I try to make sure that, hey, we see improvements in pain. And another thing that I feel pretty proud about creating buy-in for my student athletes is making sure that athletic training room is their safe place. I want them to be able to express themselves, and I want them to be able to come to me with anything. That's not a place for their coaches. And I always tell my student athletes, like, it really kind of bugs me when coaches just walk in, because that's not their room. That's not their athletic training room. That's the student athletes. And if coaches constantly keep coming in, right, then student athletes don't want to talk about things. And, trust me, it is funny that these student athletes do not think we hear them, because they say some of the stuff they say, I know they don't think anyone can hear them, but mom hears them. Oh yeah. So, and that's very important to me for them, is that they know that I can come into the athletic training room, I can tell them anything, and I will be safe.
There are some athletes though that, I mean, this is just also like in life, not everyone's going to be able to please everyone, right?
100%.
And sometimes you can do all the right things and someone just has to hear it from someone else.
100%.
Like maybe some athletes are going to work better with my co-head and some athletes are going to work better with me.
100%.
But Rebecca B says, how do I work with athletes that don't want to work with me? I don't. I send them to PT, but I continue to check in on them. And when they're not making the progress as fast as they want to, I educate and we reassess if they want to come back to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way to navigate, because, I mean, we do work with physical therapists.
Yeah.
And sometimes just because physical therapists have more familiarity throughout the general population. Like if you say, oh, I'm going to go to PT, people know what that means. Or I'm going to go to physical therapy, or I had to rehab my knee or whatever with a physical therapist. They know what that is. Whereas like you say you're going to go to an athletic trainer and people might not know what that is.
Yeah.
And so I feel like sometimes some kids and some parents just feel like their kid needs to get the care from someone with that title.
Yeah. Well, also too, I mean, how many times has this been the case where you tell a student athlete something, and then they're like, oh, I want to go see the doctor. Send him to the doctor. The doctor literally told him the same exact thing you told them.
And spent like 3 minutes with them.
Yeah. Told you the same exact thing. And then all of a sudden they feel better. Like, oh, I feel better.
A light bulb went off.
My pain's gone.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens. And you know what? I think for a lot of young ATs, that kind of like irritates you. You're like, I just don't understand why I sent you to the doc. As you get with more experience, who cares? Right? Like, if he wants to see the doctor, you go see the doctor. Like, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Right? If that's what it needs to make you feel better, then go ahead.
Right. I mean, that
doesn't bother me.
Is also technically doing your job.
Yeah.
Like, giving the athlete the best care, because if they're not going to feel like they're getting the best care from you, then you could give them 1,001 reasons why you are the best care, and they're not going to believe it.
Yeah. And some of that too comes from maybe the level too. Mm-hmm. All right. That happens a lot at higher levels, like at D1 and stuff like that, right? They just want to go see the doctor. Or like if they're not making the progress, the first thing people are going to talk to you, well, have you sent them to the doctor? Mm-hmm. All right. So, I mean, it happens. There's nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this is something that you can also address in when you have athletes coming in, and you can do that either through like when coaches bring in recruits, or like you could do in the preseason meeting, which actually I wanted to know if, because like I've always been at places where my coaches have brought in recruits. And so I have a little spiel that I do, because I'd never know when they're going to come in. And then obviously I want to make a good first impression. So I did poll our athletic trainers again in our stories, and 81% of athletic trainers have recruits that come in and they meet them and they have a little spiel.
Yeah, I used to. Yeah, I did my little sales pitch. Mm-hmm. Really, it's just talking about mostly the resources that we would have. So who our orthos are, especially because, again, we worked with a really great ortho group. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'd throw in the little buzzwords that like, oh, they were the team physicians for the Angels or the White Sox, like stuff like that, you know, because they hear those teams like, whoa. Right. So, you know, just whatever access that we have and like how quickly we can do things and stuff like that.
I usually talk about why I'm not going to take you out.
That's fair.
Who I am. They usually come to the ATR, so I'm like, yeah, look at this, our little humble abode.
Yep.
And then I'm like, believe me, I am on your side. And then I usually crack a joke about how coach is cool, but I don't have to tell coach everything.
Yeah.
And I usually like look at the coach when I say that. And then I also talk about how, well, I guess more in my preseason meeting, I talk more about our doctors and how we can use them and stuff.
Yeah. My preseason meeting talk is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So from Rebecca B, she said, for the incoming spiel, she said, I introduced myself, that I believe in don't let a little thing become a big thing, so prevention is key. Then I show them around, talk about the docs we have, how insurance works in the college setting, and let them know if they have questions. We're only an email away.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, that's one of the best things that we've done. My co-head and I have what are those, like, not a locker. It's like a storage above our desk. And you can, it looks like you can like put stuff on there like a bulletin board, but you actually can't.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we put a staple in there and then like forced it to like,
oh, nice,
go in the little mesh area. But we put our emails up.
Oh, nice. Smart.
And so whenever we're like, oh, email us. And then we just like point up.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah. It's smart. And people can take a picture of it. It's really big.
Nice.
We print it out on a big piece of paper. It is and you can tell whose desk.
Yeah, true. That's true.
It is literally the best thing we've ever done.
Well, at least at our office, you can tell the difference between desks. Mine's the one with Star Wars stuff.
I was going to say.
Just saying.
Yours covered.
Yep.
Okay, so this is actually really interesting, this next one from Emily G. She said, I work at a high school where we are able to recruit. So talking with the parents who are going to be sending the kids to essentially will be under the care of myself and the other staff members is a huge part of their visit. I meet with every family before they decide to commit to talk about my role, how we treat injuries, the resources I have, and I usually do a screening of injuries, nutrition profile, and discuss weight room experience. It typically takes around 20 minutes, but can be as long as they need it to feel comfortable. Usually our strength and conditioning coach also comes to say hi to the families so that they see that we are two different people right out the gate.
Oh, good. That's awesome.
That is genius, huh?
Yes. Oh, that's brilliant. No, I like that.
Yeah. That's one thing. I'm glad I don't work with that many parents because I feel like, when I was at the high school, my high school experience was a little bit different because I only had like a handful of athletes.
Yeah.
It was a really, really small private school. So I feel like I knew all the parents and so it was a little different. But I feel like if I were working at a high school where we're seeing more and more parents, I look very young. And I feel like when parents come and they're like freaked out about their kid getting hurt and then I walk up and I'm like, oh, so I'm taking care of your kid.
Yeah.
They're not going to take me as seriously as like a doctor or you're not a healthcare professional. You look like you're in high school. And I feel like a lot of athletic trainers have messaged us and kind of identified with that.
Yeah, been stuck in that kind of situation.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, luckily I've for me, like anytime they're bringing recruits around, right? I've only worked in the college setting, so you know when they're bringing their recruits around, right? The parents are usually there, and like I'll say hi to them. But when I'm talking my whole sales pitch, I look at the student athlete.
Right.
I'm talking to the student athlete because one, at that time they're probably an adult or close to an adult, and when they're here, they're going to be an adult.
Right.
So that's great. Mom and dad are here, and I say hi. But I'm talking to the athlete because that's who I'm going to be taking care of. It is funny though. I've gotten pretty cool with some of my student athletes' parents. I remember one would see me every track meet and say hi because for some reason I had to take care of her son more often than not at track meets. She constantly kept seeing me and was like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "I'm good."
I feel like I got close with some of your athletes' parents.
Really?
I think the ones you're talking about.
Maybe. Probably.
I think so.
Possibly.
At track meets. I mean,
track meets are a very intimate deal. Oh, yeah. And it's not like team sports where there's a separation between fans and
family and medical
and the athletes and medical and stuff like that, right? Like
there's
literally
no separation. Everyone's together.
Yeah, the track meet, just everyone can be anywhere,
wherever you want.
They can just mingle.
Right.
Which sometimes isn't the best in an emergency situation, but most of the time they're actually pretty good. I'm trying to think back. Like, I don't think I really had any parents linger around like our team tent. Like they would come over.
They would come over, but
they wouldn't linger.
No.
Like most of the time it was like after their kid was done and maybe they brought a snack or two and then they go and sit somewhere else. Like they never really hung around the team tent, which is nice.
So that's it for spiels, but changing gears kind of into a preseason meeting. 84% of our polled athletic trainers do a preseason meeting.
Yeah.
Which I think is such a vital time for you to show face in front of your athletes.
Yep.
And it's not just, hi, I'm the bad guy.
Yep. And plus it sets the tone.
Right.
Sets the expectations.
Some expectations from Rebecca B. mental health, concussions, rules of the athletic training clinic, expectations, drug testing for D3, and then we individually go over their medical history provided on their PPE.
Nice.
It's like one of my favorite things to do.
Oh yeah. I would say that's pretty much how I do most of my preseason meeting too. Obviously concussions, and if you're part of an NCAA institution, like there has to be some kind of concussion education at some point, because they have to sign off that, hey, they talked about these signs and symptoms and what to do and all that stuff. All right, so it makes sense that you throw that in the preseason meeting. And I definitely really like to talk about mental health in my preseason meeting, letting them know how I value it and what my goal is in my athletic training room with that. And then to go over the resources that we have on campus, because a lot of people don't realize how much resources are available to them on a university or a college campus. There are a ton of free resources that may not get talked about as much as they should. So a lot of these student athletes and students just in general are just kind of like, they have no idea. And then I do like to talk about what my expectations are of them and what what I'm there to do and what I expect of myself for them.
Yeah, I go over that. I do go over insurance.
That's good.
And I also go over...
Yeah, insurance is a big one.
If you go see your own doctor, that I need to know everything.
Yes.
Everything.
And I reassure them that, like, if you want to go see your own doctor, that's fine. I'm never going to tell you no. I'm never going to tell you no, don't see a doctor, or I'm never going to tell you you can't see your doctor or a doctor you want. But I do give them the caveat. Our team physician has the right to make the final call. So if your doctor says yes, our doctor can say no. That's what we're going with, because that's who we work under. So I do give them that caveat, so they're not like all surprised, even though they will be. They'll always be surprised. All right, that's what I did with COVID. I told them COVID rules, and I was like, all right, did we have any questions? And no one raises their hand. And I'm like, okay, are we sure? Because I know I'm going to tell you all this, and you're going to be confused and pissed off. They all started giggling because, yeah, they know.
Yeah. We also go over insurance policyholder, because everyone thinks they have their own insurance and it's not through their parents.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I'm like, I usually say, I know your parents are not born in 2003.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, next one?
Yeah, you want to read it?
All right, this one's by Anonymous. We have to go through concussion presentations once a year with athletes and coaches. We go over the basics for concussions and how they happen, what happens to your brain and body when you get a concussion, and then also try to hit some myths and teach them something, like helmets are for skull fractures, not necessarily helping you with concussions. You don't have to get hit in the head to get a concussion if there's a great enough force that travels up. And then I also hit things like supplements and educate about that, and heat illness, specifically for my soccer team, at the same time. For rowing, I hit more of the, here's what I do and here's how you should utilize my skills too, because a lot of them are not used to ATs. Oh, I also go over treatment for concussions. I do some rehab with them and then can also send them to a PT at our clinic for rehab if that's not enough. What return to play looks like, and they always ask about timeframes, so I try to educate that each concussion is very, very different, and all the background history that can affect that as well. I like it. I feel that.
Yeah, I think that we don't go over enough concussion stuff, but our meetings get pretty long, so
I could imagine. And it's especially like depending, like, again, like what governing body is it? NCAA, NAI, is it community college, like stuff like that, right? There's different requirements. So like a lot of times these preseason meetings, at least again, because I'm a little more familiar with how like some NCAA does it, they loop them into, oh, here's the compliance meeting. So you you do your meeting after compliance goes, right? And you can easily be there for like 2 hours, 3 hours. And it's just like, dude, this is just dragging. So like, I get that. It's hard to hit everything you want when it's also being grouped with probably another meeting.
We also go over rules of the athletic training clinic.
That's good. let them know what's up.
Especially because we've had a lot of people with, I don't know why this year it's been a lot of FaceTime calls, and we're like, you can't be videoing other people.
I've had athletes doing that too. I think it's maybe a post-COVID thing.
Maybe, but I don't know why it's like specifically. I feel like in the ATR that they're like, maybe because they're just like sitting there doing rehab or something. But we're like, how about you just do that after?
Yeah. Or my favorite is you're FaceTiming someone, but yet you're still not looking at them because the phone's facing the ceiling.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm like, you know how quickly that drains your battery? I don't understand.
Yeah, you might as well just have called them.
Yeah.
Instead of FaceTiming the wall.
Yeah.
Weird.
Next one you want to read?
Yes. This one's by Gabby L. My biggest thing with this is to let them know I'm there to do what's best for them and to advocate for them. I say that during the meeting, but most of the time things come up where they are feeling pressure to play because of things the coaches are telling them. So I remind them that I'm there to help communicate with coach too. So if they aren't feeling ready to play, even if they might be ready physically, I'll still hold them out. That's true. I like to make sure that they know that as well, that I am here for you. I'm not here for your coach. I'm not here for,
I don't work for your coach.
Exactly. I'm here for you. And if you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. Like, as long as you let me know, I can do something with that. Because I know how I can talk to coach to make the coach feel better with that decision, not happy with the decision, just feel better about the decision than just saying like, oh, they don't feel ready. No, I can have a better conversation if you just let me know what's going on. And if you just mentally like, hey, I'm just not ready to be out there. Okay, we can work with that, because then you actually aren't ready to be out there if you're not mentally ready to be out there either. So
that's one thing. I feel like I've had more kids ask me to take them out.
Yeah.
Than I've been like, no, you can't go.
Yeah. Again, I think it's the stigma slowly going away.
Right.
I think some kids are starting to be like, no, like I need to feel fresh, or like I need to take care of me. And I definitely, again, it goes back to like what's been going on in the media and stuff, right? You're starting to see a lot more student athletes speak out and advocate for themselves and, stand up for themselves. And I think it's really good. It's really good to see that a lot of student athletes are feeling, the power that they really do have. And I think more student athletes are feeling that.
I feel like when you lose more, it's also easier to be like, can I not play?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when it's that kind of season.
When we go to a 0-10 season,
yeah,
you know how many of those athletes don't want to play?
I'm mean,
like, hey, I got your back.
I mean, if you get hurt on that 10th game and you're like 0-9, like, I kind of don't want to play anymore.
Right.
I'm done. My favorite was I gave Sandra a hard time about, I would make the, Miss Sandra, do I have to go back?
That soundbite is pretty accurate.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Right? Like, if it makes playing really hard. Like when you go through, and when you go through that every game, and it's not like they were close games that made you 0-10. You got blown out probably 80% of them.
Yeah.
Right? So by the 10th game of losing 50-0, like I don't want to play anymore.
No. I don't want to be here anymore either.
I want to go home. It's Saturday. I would like to go home.
Yes, please. So not our last story, almost our last story. By Madeline S. I honestly just really try to reiterate what I'm trying to accomplish and why I make them take some accountability in their own bodies. I want them to understand what's going on, ask questions, tell me what they fear and what makes them upset so we can work through that together. I also ask them to share with me what their major is and what they want to do after they graduate and what their goals are with playing their sport. It gives me an idea of how far I can push them. I also am completely transparent with their injury and want to have them have informed consent. I've had transfers with horror stories of athletic departments withholding MRIs and keeping them in the dark about their injuries to avoid surgery, save money, and control them.
Oh my gosh.
So sad. I honestly put in a lot of work when it comes to this, but it is so worth it. In terms of building trust and knowing my athletes' tells when they are hurt, I make a point to show up to practices for my out-of-season teams a couple of times a semester so they can see my face and remember I exist. Just by showing up, it gives them an opportunity to be like, oh, hey, since you're here, can I come by later? Literally happens every time, which it does.
That's true. That is really true.
It does. Whenever I make my way out to baseball practice, oh my goodness.
All of a sudden, everyone hurts.
Yeah. I'm like, you guys know where the athletic training clinic is. So she continues on to say, LOL, I meet with coaches monthly to stay up to date, and I text my athletes constantly. Because if I want them to communicate, I need to lead it. It is tedious, but I built a good routine, so most reach out to me first now. And after all of this, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on my athletes and their personalities. So I can tell when the tough one is pushing through and needs to be reeled in, or the sensitive one just needs a moment, or that one that always flops is going to be okay if I give them a minute to sell it.
There you go.
I think that's one thing that gets overlooked, is we watch our athletes way more than they think we do. We see a lot more than they think we do.
Just like we hear a lot more.
We hear a lot more.
Trust me, there are no secrets that an athletic trainer does not know. We hear things. And also, I do like what she was saying because about like asking about their major and what their goal is. I genuinely like understanding like what these kids are going to school for, and like what do they want to do? Why do they want to do that? Like I really like understanding their past because it does help with my treatment and what's important to them, and like talking to some of these athletes or patients, like right, you get to understand how important their sport is, and like why do they want to come back so bad or so quickly, and like stuff like that, and what's important to them, and it really helps with the rehab and return to play process.
Also, I mean, just like today, I had one of my old football players come in to the athletic training clinic just because, and he was telling us all about what he wants to do and how he's going to take over his dad's business, and cool. His dad's a trustworthy mechanic, and then he was telling us all about how like the stigma of mechanics and how like some people are like, oh, this is wrong with your car even though it isn't. So he was telling us about that, and it was just really cool to hear outside of sport
what interests them, because again, they're more than just athletes. They are more than just their sport.
Right. And then lastly, what you wish your athletes knew.
Oh, so much. I wish they knew so much.
Kind of going along with what we're saying, Marissa S says, with my football kids, I can tell they are hurt just by their gait, how long it takes them to get up, how hard they cut, or how they interact with their teammates. I feel the most confident and enjoy my job the most when I really know my athletes. When the schedule and hours make it possible, I like being at practices, looking in on workouts, etc. because the kids feel more comfortable around me, but mainly because I learn what they look like and they play like when they're healthy.
I love it. That's true.
I feel like especially, I mean, I'm basing this off the fact that I spent so long with football this semester or last semester, so obviously I'm talking about it a lot, but I feel like you can look out way down the field and you're like, oh, that's so-and-so.
Yeah. 100%.
Just from the way
that everything happened or how they're walking.
Right. But it's true. I feel like we are around them so much.
Oh, yes, 100%. Which is why we're such a unique healthcare profession. Because we really get to know our patients and we really understand them, which helps us key in on things that maybe another healthcare professional would have missed just because, they get such a brief period that they're with this person that they don't know. Right? That's how I was able to figure out like one of my mental health cases, right? She wasn't acting how she normally would. She wasn't responding how I knew she normally would. And that's what triggered me. Hey, something's off. I need to talk to her.
No, it's definitely that relationship that we get. And people talk about it all the time.
100%.
So putting together just a brief list of what we wish our athletes knew.
Again, so much.
These are just a few snippets from our question box and condensed and just a few of our favorites. So we don't always know the answers.
True. That's true.
But we might know someone who does.
Yes.
We like to get to know you on the field, not in the athletic training room. We are not personal trainers, and we are also not physical therapists.
Correct. And I'm also not your coach. Don't call me coach.
Some athletic trainers go by coach. I think it's like a Midwest thing.
Probably. But yeah, when my athletes call me coach, I'll stop them, but I'm not your coach. Not your coach. And again, some of that is just because they just don't know. So that's my chance to educate them.
And we are here to help you before you get injured.
Yes. There's just some kids who think like I can only go in the athletic training room when I'm hurt. So like when their pain like goes away, they just magically disappear. I'm like, no, keep coming back.
You know, some kids think that there's a stigma of the athletic training clinic and that you don't want to be in there.
That's
because
true.
It means you're injured.
That's true. Luckily, you know what? I think that stigma is slowly going away based on, you know, we have a lot of kids that like to just come hang out, which sometimes is too much. This is not a hangout.
Right.
It's the balance. You're looking for the balance. It is nice.
The other side, the difficulty of having people come to you with pain and problems every day. That is something they wish their athletes knew.
That's true.
It is. And I think that some athletic trainers are natural givers and some are not. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot from some of us who are not natural givers.
Well, when you take, you know, when you look like take a step back and really look at our day is solely around people complaining to us.
Uh-huh.
Like that's all we get. Like most people don't just come in. I mean, there are those people that come in to say hi, right? But most people, they're only coming to us to complain. Mm-hmm. And that can be tough.
Mm-hmm. We're qualified and we went to school for this.
That's right.
I feel like we tell people that a lot.
Yes.
We are prepared for the worst. Me sitting around all day is a good thing because no one's hurt.
Yes, that is true.
I feel like the athletes understand that. I feel like the bystanders do not. Oh my goodness.
I hate it when they say something.
Yeah. Okay, you didn't need to say anything.
Yeah, thanks, guy. Just like the massage thing. I hate it when people ask, like, giving away free massages. Get out. I hate that one.
My most recent bystander comment, I guess, is I traveled with my men's basketball team, and he came over and was like, "Oh, that's so nice. They love being around you because you're a female."
Excuse me?
And I was like,
what?
Wow, I don't even know what to say right now.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's like, ugh. No, they like coming around me because
I get them
I do
better.
My job well.
Yeah.
Gosh. Thanks for really pointing that out.
Yeah. Thanks, guy.
Yeah. Much more than a pretty face, thanks.
Yeah.
Let's see. We generally care about your present and your long-term health.
Yes. I actually really do think about, man, I'm pretty sure my athlete, when he or she is 40, would like to play with their kids.
If they have kids.
Or their dogs. Or cats.
Their dogs.
Or iguanas. Could be iguanas.
And lastly, we have lives outside of work that do not revolve around athletes.
My gosh, yes. It actually does mildly irritate me, like when my athletes will ask me, like, "Oh, are you here like can I come in like Saturday at like 7 p.m.? No. Why do you think I'm here?" Or like they'll ask me, like, it'll be a weekday and like, "Oh, I have class, I got this. Like I'm done at like 8. Why do you think I'm here at 8 p.m.? Like, no. I think it's a case like, you know, when you're a kid, right? Like at like first grade, second grade, right? And you see your teacher outside of school, like at like doing regular human things, and you're so shocked because you think they live at school. I feel like it's like that.
I feel like it's a perspective thing that they don't realize until they are outside of it, and they're like, "Oh, that's cringeworthy that I ask things like that."
Question. I do genuinely think some of my athletes think I live there, and that I'm only there for them.
You basically used to live in the athletic training clinic.
I did. I admit it. Look at me now.
getting mad at people who thought that of
That's
you.
that's right. That's right.
Growth.
Look at that. Evolution.
So we're going to put up a question of the week in our Facebook group. If you guys are not a part of our Facebook group, head over to facebook.com/group/ATcornerPodcast. I think we should put up something about what you wish your athletes knew.
Yeah. I think that'll work.
And then if you guys want to submit for a future story episode, which I believe we actually have, let's see, a few topics upcoming.
Ooh.
We might do softball or swim stories. We can do.
Hey, I'm joining the swim world now.
You are. You're gonna need that.
I work with the aquatics. Yeah, I'm gonna need some help.
Lasting relationships you've made with athletes, or etc.
Ooh, that's a good one.
When benches are thin. This is a request by Rachel L.
I've lived that.
When the whole team is hurt, multiple injuries, or multiple people getting injured at once.
I feel like most ATs now may have experience with that because of post-COVID.
Yeah, I feel like that too. Or
because of COVID.
I feel like that too. Where it's like, do we even have enough? That was like the first time my football coach was like, do we have enough guys to play? And I was like,
that's tough.
Football?
That's tough.
11-man football?
Yeah. That's tough.
Like, not my 8-man.
College football, too.
Yeah.
Hey, man, it's hard. It's hard.
Anyway, you can submit it through Instagram. We will put up some story prompts. Usually I try to put them up earlier in the week, and it's usually the week of a CU episode. And then, yeah, I'll get back to you by the end of the week.
Yep. Perfect.
And then every other episode is education or stories. This one is a story episode. Next week is an education episode. Check out our CUs, which we're also going to post an update on Instagram soon, which is some of the new things that we're changing.
Yep.
And I think that's all of our fine print.
Yep.
Happy New Year, guys.
Yes, happy 2023.
Can't wait.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for helping us showcase athletic training behind the tape. Bye.